Welcome, everyone. This is our leadership training, and it's going to be on communicating with clarity, care, and confidence. I'm Mandy Sankler, your Director of Partnerships and Communication, and it's such a pleasure to be here today, welcoming you all here, and to welcome our first speaker, Maddi, who is going to kick us off today and share her story, and she does an excellent job of communicating with clarity, care, and confidence. And then we're going to have Lowell Applebaum join us at 5:30 to give some tips and training to you, our leaders, on what you can do to improve those communication strategies. So just to get started, a reminder that it's a meeting format because we want this to be an interactive session. So there will be opportunities to unmute throughout and ask questions. We do ask for now, while others are speaking, if you could stay on mute. But please chat in the chat box as we go through. And once we get to the Q&A session, we'll certainly allow you to unmute then and have a free-flowing conversation. And in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from Maddi. And Maddi, after suffering a massive hemorrhagic stroke in 2017 that nearly took her life and left her completely paralyzed on her left side, has since undergone extensive cognitive, speech, physical, and occupational rehabilitation to recuperate all the skills that she once took for granted. As an author, social media content creator, speaker, and world traveler, Maddi is a passionate and vocal advocate for the community, championing the rehabilitation journey by channeling a positive mindset. Obstacles are opportunities, and it is Maddi's mission to help others dealing with trauma by building community and empowering others to share their stories. And once we've heard from Maddi, we're then going to turn to Lowell. And Lowell is the CEO of Vista Cove, and you may have seen him back when he did a training back in the fall. And with his work, he helps organizations like Mended Hearts and Mended Little Hearts, Young Mended Hearts, with strategic planning, governance, board development, and facilitation. He's known for leading engaging, interactive sessions that bring volunteers, members, and staff into the conversation. With more than a decade of association leadership experience, Lowell has worked in executive leadership, membership, volunteer development, and global alliance building. And through Vista Cove, he's supported hundreds of nonprofits, foundations, and associations. As a respected leader in the association community, Lowell has served in multiple ASAE leadership roles, teaches in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce IOM program, and holds a doctorate in organizational leadership. Above all, he's a proud dad and a fan of great and sometimes terrible dad jokes. So we'll be welcoming Lowell in just a little while. And before we get started, we just want to thank our partner on this program, the BMS and J&J Alliance. Without support like this, we wouldn't be able to bring you this free training to help you. So with that, I'm going to let Maddi take over. And Maddi, please go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction and for having me. Am I off of mute? You can see me?
You're a little bit faint, Maddi.
Oh, sorry. Now I'm off of mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but is there any way to maybe just move a little closer to your microphone, or?
Oh, are you not able to? I'm quite close to it at the moment.
Okay, I think that
All right.
that should be okay.
Let's,
Okay, folks?
maybe we can advance. I just realized this one is from it says a previous, I guess I sent you the wrong one, but it's fine. It's still the same content.
Go ahead.
All right. So thank you all for having me here. I'm excited to share my story. To begin, I want to invite you all to think back to the year 2002. Now, I don't know how old everyone on this call was in the year 2002, but for me, not to date myself, but I was 7 years old. So you can figure out the math. Why this is significant is that when I was 7, I can remember the moment precisely. I was sitting in Miss Pruding's 2nd grade math class, learning how to solve word problems with my classmate Peter Marchetto, when I was struck with my very first migraine. If any of you get migraines, I'm sure you can relate. For me, it was the worst pain I ever feel in my life that I would never wish upon even my worst enemy. But I would get the aura. My vision would totally fog over. I couldn't see anything. I had searing pain in my head. I've tried every migraine medication under the sun. The only thing that would somewhat work is sitting in a quiet, dark room and vomiting. That was literally the only thing. Like, none of the medicines really worked for me. This continued for, it started when I was 7 and it continued for much of my life until when I was 15 years old. I was a freshman in high school. I got a migraine that lasted 24 days without relenting. 24 days. I went to the ER like 3 times. I had all sorts of medicinal cocktails, everything to try and help. And then it came back. It eventually ended after 24 days, and it came back the same time the next year for like 21 days. And this was when my neurologist was like, "This is not normal. We need to get this checked out and see if there is something else going on." So he ordered that I had an MRI brain scan. The MRI revealed that I had a rare condition, which is known as an arteriovenous malformation. Now, for those who are unaware, an arteriovenous malformation, or an AVM for short, as they call it, is an abnormal tangle of blood vessels that don't have capillaries. So, in essence, the blood flows directly between the arteries and the capillaries, and it's extremely unregulated and therefore completely unsafe. I was told this is very dangerous. You should figure out what options there are for you. So, I met with countless neurosurgeons, the vast majority of which told me, "Your AVM is so big," it was 7 centimeters. "We do not feel comfortable performing an operation of this scale." And the smaller percentage said, "This is so big, it needs to be removed completely." So I was getting very contrasting opinions. I didn't know what to do. My family, none of us knew what to do. But ultimately, we decided that I would continue my education. I would get a brain surgery after I graduated college, and then I would move on with my life. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of me on my college graduation day. This is me and my family. I graduated from Georgetown in Washington, D.C. in 2017. So this was a great day in my life, but I had already scheduled that I was going to go in for a brain surgery soon afterwards, and then hopefully I'd gotten a job. I was gonna hopefully at the end of the summer, I would rest and recover. In the end of the summer, I would move up to Boston and start my career in technology sales. We can go to the next slide. And so 10 days after I got my diploma, I checked into the hospital for my scheduled brain surgery. Now, I had been told that I would have the brain surgery, I would spend like a month or two resting and recovering, and then I would be in perfect condition to move up to Boston and turn the next page on a new chapter in my life and launch my career. Next slide. That was unfortunately not what happened, because things, as we know, or we may know, don't always go as planned. So, because my AVM was so big, I had to have a preoperative procedure. That preoperative caused a blood clot in my brain, which burst, causing me to have a massive stroke in the hospital and get rushed into an emergency operation. So that's what happened. I was rushed into an emergency surgery. My neurosurgeon, who had gone home for the night to get a good night's sleep before performing my craniotomy, was rushed back because I was having a stroke. As he was rolling me into the OR, he pulled my parents aside and said, "The situation is grim." He did not think I was going to make it out of this alive. I lost 12 liters of blood, which is almost double the amount of blood a human body contains. And things were just not looking good for me. And so he didn't make any promises. He said, "I don't know if she's going to make it. If she does, we have no idea what her life will look like moving forward." So my family was freaking out, as you can imagine. Luckily for me, he was able to stop the blood clot, remove the AVM, and I was placed into a medically induced coma. When I awoke from the medically induced coma, I found out I was completely paralyzed on my dominant left side of my body. Now, that's everything from my dominant left hand and arm, my leg, my left trunk. I couldn't sit up in a chair by myself. Um, the left side of my face, I couldn't speak, I couldn't swallow. I lost all of the left side peripheral vision out of both of my eyes. So even to this day, like I cannot see on the left side. So it's been an adjustment to have to learn to move my head and all of that. So this is kind of where my rehab journey begins. Next slide. So I spent 15 days in the ICU where essentially the only thing I learned was how to sit up in a wheelchair. And then I was discharged to an inpatient subacute rehab, which was near where my parents live in New Jersey. So I went to Kessler Institute in West Orange, New Jersey, and I went through cognitive, speech, physical, occupational therapy intensively for 5 weeks before I was discharged to outpatient therapy. The reason that I show this picture too is because as a result of my stroke, I suffered from cervical dystonia, meaning that I could not hold my head in midline. I could not bring my head into midline like I am right now. So my neck was completely crooked. I had to go through extensive therapies to work on that. I still do it, to be honest. I still go to it to help correct the positioning of my neck because it's not how it was. Next slide. And this is just a picture from my rehab days from when I was in inpatient therapy learning how to walk for the first time. I started with the cane. I suffer from foot drops still to this day. So I had a ACE bandage when I was in the hospital, and then I moved to an AFO and then other braces. But I'm very fortunate in that I have, unlike a lot of people, I do have a very supportive family who has been there for me every step of the way. And there you can see my brother and my mom walking me down the hallway. My mom would literally, she knew it was important to me to get back my independence. And she would force me, even when I didn't want to go walk up and down the hallways of the rehab center to learn how to, how to be able to walk again. So that was something I didn't want to do, but I ended up doing because at the end of the day, what I wanted more than anything was my independence. Next slide. And I remember when I was in inpatient and outpatient therapy, I told my physical therapist more than anything, I want my independence back. Keep in mind, I was 22 years old when I had this stroke. I was just a kid and I wanted the life that I felt that I had been robbed of. I wanted to be able to live by myself and hang out with friends and do fun things. And so I was going to do whatever it took to get to that point. So my younger siblings, I'm the oldest. My younger siblings were in college at this time, and we went to go visit. My brother went to Duke, and my sister went to UNC, and we went to go visit them one time. And here's me and my dad walking in the hotel room, practicing walking without a cane. I was very relentless with my practicing of doing things by myself because I knew at the end of the day, I was young. I had my whole life ahead of me. I wanted to be able to do things on my own, live on my own, work a full time job. I knew it was going to be a hard and long journey, but I really wanted that for myself because I knew I was too young. My life was not over at this point, and I would do whatever it took to be able to regain that. Next slide. So when I told my therapist this, there were a bunch of skills that I needed to learn to be able to regain my independence. Apart from the cognitive and speech aspect of it, there was this physical therapy that I needed to be able to regain and occupational. And so I remember speaking to my therapist and I told him, I want to be able to independent, but if I fall down, who's going to help me up? If I'm living by myself, maybe there won't be anyone to help me up. And so we started practicing one of the most important skills, which I think that you can practice as a stroke survivor, someone who goes through a situation like me, is learning how to get yourself up off the floor. That was a huge turning point for me because once I learned how to get up off the floor by myself, then if I'm out in public and I fall, I know that I don't need someone to help me. I can get myself up by myself. And so that was a really big turning point for me in terms of my independence. We can go to the next. About a year after I had the stroke, my first book was published. Now, to provide a little bit of context as to this, I had the stroke in May of 2017. A few months after that, I remember talking to one of my very favorite professors from Georgetown, and I told him, listen, I feel so left out. All of my friends have graduated from college, they moved to the city, they're leading exciting lives, working full time jobs, hanging out with friends. That's what I should be doing. That was the life that I felt that I should have, but obviously I couldn't because I had bigger fish to fry. And so he told me, Maddi, since you're not working full time, why don't you take this opportunity to really consider what are your areas of interest, where do you want to have your impact, and build a life in that arena? And I thought that was a great idea. I'd always wanted to be in the fashion industry, but at the same time, I had no experience in it. I'd never even worked a retail job. And I thought, who would ever hire me? So I just started talking to people. I started reaching out to friends, asking if they knew anyone. I interviewed the editor of the Washington Post. I interviewed models. I interviewed fashion executives and small business owners, anyone and everyone, collecting their stories. And I ended up writing them up into my book, which came out a little over a year after my stroke. And it's called Fashion Forward: How Today's Culture Shapes Tomorrow's Fashion. And that's a picture of me and my dad on the day of my book launch. What's interesting about this book, though, is that not only did I talk about the trends in the fashion industry and how I saw it changing, it is that I also wove in anecdotes about how I was using the act of writing a book as a tool in my own cognitive rehabilitation and how that helped me. Next slide. So at the same time, my book came out in 2018. I'm still undergoing therapy. I ended up going down to Birmingham, Alabama for constraint-induced movement therapy at the Taub Clinic. So here you can see I did constraint therapy for my left leg, which is my affected leg. And then I ended up going back later for my arm as well. And that was another thing that helped me in my physical recovery. Next slide. About a little under 2 years after I had my stroke is when I began working a full-time job. Now, this was a big milestone for me because yes, I'd been like so fully invested and focused on my physical recovery, but a long-term goal of mine had been to be working full-time. So in 2019, I began working actually as a reinsurance underwriter for a Spanish reinsurance company. Lucky for me, I did not lose my capacity for languages, and excuse me, I was fluent in Spanish and I still am. And I got a job working as a reinsurance underwriter for a Spanish company. And so I began doing that, which was a great opportunity for me to work on my cognitive rehab in a practical sense. And then I also went back to do constraint therapy for my arm. And that was big for me because I learned how to do things like put my hair up in a bun and open doors and cabinets with my affected left hand. At this time, I also began my own Instagram account. So my Instagram account, which is at Maddi Stroke of Luck, I started it to connect with fellow survivors and caregivers because as I was doing research for my first book, I realized something important, and that is that not everyone has a built-in support system. Not everyone has a loving family who can help them through this, and I wanted to be the support system for people and connect them to resources and organizations that could help in their recovery. Next slide. Shortly after that, I was connected with a fellow survivor through FaceTime from another friend of mine. And her name is Tawny, and she's on Instagram as well. And she told me that since her stroke, she's been going live on Instagram and found it was a great way to work on her cognitive skills because you have to be able to hold a conversation, read comments, and respond to them and stuff like that. So she was like, why don't we do an Instagram live together? So in 2019, we did. And let me tell you, we started it, we said it would be Survivor Sunday. We've done it pretty much every Sunday since. So since September of 2019, we've been doing this once a week, this Instagram Live, and it's been a great way to build community and connect with other stroke survivors. And we still do it. So if anyone's on Instagram, you should join us. Next slide. A little bit after that, my second book came out. So this one is called Fast Forward, The Fully Recovered Mindset. My books are on Amazon, by the way, but here's just a little quote from someone, a random person who had reached out to me about reading my book, about his son who read my book. He said he was told about Fast Forward by a friend and fellow stroke survivor, bought a copy, and I can honestly say it has changed his life in giving a new perspective from victim to true survivor. So my second book is actually about my stroke experience in the first 3 years, at that point it was, the first 3 years of my stroke recovery journey and the lessons that I learned around channeling a positive mindset to enhance my recovery trajectory. Next slide. Shortly after that, my advocacy work grew. I'm very passionate about connecting with the survivor community, as I'm sure you can tell. And when I started my Instagram, I started sharing my journey, connecting with other survivors. I was contacted by the World Health Organization. They had me come speak at their global rehabilitation meeting in 2030, Global Rehabilitation 2030 meeting, which was actually held in 2023. So I went to Geneva, Switzerland to share my patient testimonial there. And that was my first experience sharing my story on a global stage. And it was so great to be able to meet all these different organizations and countries that are passionate about advocating for global rehabilitation and sharing the journey and helping as many people as possible. Next slide. Now, on top of that, I am a pretty vocal advocate for the stroke and brain injury and disability community. Through my social media and my public speaking, I also do a lot of. I also related to the Mended Hearts. I was one of the ambassadors for the American Heart Association in 2025 for the New York City chapter, because that's where I live now in New York City. I live and work independently. I travel all over the world at this point. Like I've gone to Vietnam, Bali, I've gone all over Europe, South America, everywhere. And to me, it's very important to be able to travel and share the experience of what it's like to travel as a person with a physical disability. So I started my community page, which is Maddi Stroke of Luck, mainly through my Instagram, Maddi Stroke of Luck. And when I found out that there were so many people who were interested in connecting with other survivors, I launched the live event portion of this, which is Fast Forward Summits. So I started Fast Forward Summits, or Fast FWD as it's called, and I host them biannually to connect the stroke survivor, brain injury, and caregiver community to each other, expose them to resources and education, and I have lots of speakers on a plethora of topics, and it's been a great way to, not only connect the community, but show them that there is hope. There is all this amazing research and resources out there to help people like us. And I think that is vitally important. And so I started these events. My next summit will actually be in New York City on April 24th. And then I'll be doing Birmingham, Alabama on October 9th. So if anyone is in those areas or interested to come, definitely please reach out to me. I would be happy. The more the merrier. I'm already starting to get quite a bit of people signed up for it and registered. So would love to have more, and I think Mended Hearts might be able to come as well, so that'd be great. But these summits are a very important thing to me, and I'm trying really hard to scale them and grow that and just help as many survivors as possible, because like I said, not everyone has built-in support system. Not everyone has the ability to connect with lots of other survivors. So if I can help do that, that to me is very important. Next slide. And lastly, in 2024, I launched my first group trip. So I've collaborated with an organization that helps creators to throw group trips for their community, and I decided I want to do one for the disability community. So I hosted a group trip to Bali, Indonesia, in May of 2024, and we had an awesome time, and it was an incredible group of survivors and just another great way to connect the community while exploring a new setting together. So that was something that I really enjoyed doing. And in fact, I loved it so much. I'm now hosting another group trip in September of this year. So September 2026, I am doing Greece. So I'm going Athens and Santorini. And I'm really excited to bring together the community in that way and explore a new part of Europe that I myself have not been to before with a local guide. So I'm really, really excited about that. Next slide. So that's the end of my presentation. So there's a lot going on. Here's my contact info. I would love the opportunity to connect with any of you, especially if you want to come to either of my summits in New York or Birmingham. And yeah, feel free to reach out on any of these platforms. And thank you for having me, Mended Hearts.
Thank you, Maddie. That was, I've heard your story before, and I was so struck by it. I just really wanted our visitors and leaders to hear it because they have so much to learn from you, I think, with your positivity. And so I'm going to stop share and invite anyone to, unmute or put a question into the chat. And Amy says, hi, Maddie.
Hi, Amy.
Amy, Amy and Maddie were both at our Hill Day last week. And so, out there advocating on behalf of
Oh,
all of
that
our,
was so fun. What a great
yeah,
experience, by the way.
yeah, thank you. And Denise says, thank you for sharing your story. So let me get things started, Maddie, with a question. A lot of the people on the call here, they are out in the hospitals and communities, and they're visiting with people who may have just had a stroke. What would be when they're visiting with caregivers and patients, and they may have experienced a stroke? Do you have any advice for, keeping positive or resources they can go to for support,
Yeah,
things
I
like
would say
that?
reminder. One of the biggest things I would say is like a reminder to give yourselves some grace because as survivors, at least for myself, like I wanted everything to happen immediately, right? Like I just thought one day I would wake up and be better. And while that proved not to be the case, and I learned that pretty soon, I would say just a reminder that, things don't happen overnight and it probably won't happen overnight. But at the same time, like give yourself grace. If it's not, like, it's okay to take breaks, to take rests. Things like that are just as important in your healing journey and in your recovery.
Thank you. Thank you. And we do have some questions. Are you available? We have many of the people on the call have their own individual chapter meetings. Are you available if any of them wanted to have you,
Yes,
join by
please. And
Zoom?
I'll text right in here my email address, but I would absolutely love to.
Okay, great. So Joe, please reach out to Maddie at your convenience.
Yes, that was
Um,
Joe. So I just sent in the chat my email address. Please
thank
send me an
you.
email. I would absolutely love to.
Thank you. John asks, are your cruises or trips, are they open to folks of living with any type of disability, or is it stroke related only?
It's not specific to stroke. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk with you more about that. The Greece trip, I will say, is admittedly probably not the most accessible one. But that being said, like, I mean, depending on what your level of disability is, I think it could work. But yeah, no, it's not specific to stroke. I have a guy signed up who's actually TBI, so he's not stroke, but he's coming. Um, yeah, no, I said stroke just because that's primarily what my community is, but it's not
Mhm.
exclusive to stroke.
Yeah. And I think, something that really struck me as you're telling your story is how you were able to take like your work, your professional work, and make everything you did part of your rehabilitation process. That's
Mm.
such
And it's
a
important
positive.
that I think that mindset of viewing it everything, Mandy, as like a tool in your recovery and like, I've also switched careers 3 times since I've started. I worked in reinsurance, then I finally worked in fashion after, writing the book and everything. Now I work in biotech and there's so many transferable skills and anything can happen. And so I always encourage people, especially survivors, that like don't limit yourself in your journey. Like we can do anything, quite literally.
Yeah, I love that message. Any other questions, folks, about the type of services Maddi and her community can help provide support services or um, and Maddi, as you encounter people that you work with around the country, know that we have chapters and groups all around the US
Yes,
and we hold support group meetings, visit in the hospital, and we too can help support the folks that you're working with. So
of course. And yeah, I put my email address in there, and Mandy, you can send it out. I would love to connect with any and all of you because I'm always looking to help connect our community and spread resources and you know anything really.
thank you. Thank you, Maddi. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we're done a few minutes early, so we invite all of our visitors and who are on, our leaders who are on. Lowell's going to start at 5:30, so you have a little bit of time to go grab refreshments, a bio break, whatever you need to do, and we'll be here and ready to start with the rest of the training at 5:30. So, Maddi, thank you
Thank you,
again,
Mandy.
and really
Thanks,
appreciate
everyone.
all you do.
Thank you very much, Maddie.
This is great. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to speak with you all. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out if anything comes up or whatever. So
Will
I'd
do.
love
And
to
we're going to
connect
try
with
to
you.
be in New York. And Mark, you're in New York. If you've got any members up there who are able to
Oh,
attend.
Mark, you're in New York. Let me shoot me an email, Mark. I'll invite you. I'll send you the summit info. We'd love for you to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be great.
Oh, great. All right, guys. Well, please feel free to step away if you need to, and then just hop back on at 5:30 and